So this is part A of the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast only on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Editions. Part A at 07:20 GMT, which is being broadcast a few minutes before that stated time on Friday, the 1st of September 2023. We shall be doing a roundup of the overdue things, including the astonishing fact that the Fleet Street newspapers, I think including the Daily Express, the corrupt and the stupid and the racist and the idiotic legacy of the liar, Beaverbrook, Daily Express, which took money from Al Fayed for a number of years to spin his line, his particular line that Diana was murdered by Brenda's husband, Philip, and other conspirators. So today's newspapers, Free State newspapers, on the front pages, or come to that. In the Times newspapers, Caitlin Moran's Celebrity Watch, there is no mention. I can't see any heading in the items. There are 6 items there. Caitlin Moran. And the first one, she is giving more space to the creep in Spain. How do you pronounce this particular spelling? Luis or Luis? And of course, the Times has got a news so-called item about the fact that about 1,000,000 years ago, humanity almost nearly went extinct. Humanity went extinct. And there is a piece in the I newspaper which has got a platform given to the former Financial Times name Sebastian Payne, saying that the National Service should be revived as a solution to the decline. He says, what is he saying? Let's check what he's saying, Sebastian Payne. Sebastian Payne is saying on the front page trailer on this I paper, younger people are unhappy and unmoored. The answer is national service. On the same page, front page of the I paper, has got a big splashing, smiling photograph of the liar, Grant Shit. Grant Shit is the liar who confessed to lying. Well, he's not the only liar in the ranks of the Conservatives. The liar that he is replacing, Ben Wallace, is among the uncountable long list of liars in the posts as ministers. And that this I paper idiotically says Grandshaps is warned not to cave in on military spending by allies of outgoing Chief Ben Wallace. And then they quote, "Time will tell if he can protect armed forces from Treasury X. Sources close to Wallace tell I." And there is no mention whatsoever of the idea of a thing called peace, alternative to war. And the scum, Murdoch's scum, instead of marking Diana's murder, is continuing with the attack on Diana's son Harry with the diversity display. A mental slave, absolute mental slave, looking at the creepy grin on his face as he pictured himself or near Harry some time ago, of course, and they're overhyping him. A maimed Marine whose plight touched Harry as they were flown from the Afghan war yesterday hit out. I'll read that again because the sequence needed a kind of space between two words that I'll come to. A maimed Marine whose plight touched Harry as they were flown from the Afghan war. There should be a comma after this. Yesterday, hit out at Prince's attack on the media. He's not attacking the media, he's telling the truth about the lying media, typified by the dirty digger scum. And then the overhype Ben, brave Ben McBean, 36, said, "I had his back for 15 years. On this one, he is wrong. Fuck off, you mental slave. Shit." And they then go on to berate Harry on pages 4 and 5. And the grinning mental slave is wearing a t-shirt declaring Harry and Ben at rehab headquarters. And then there are various highlights. "I don't know what Harry is on about. They didn't write us off," says hero Ben McBean. Now they did fucking write them off, you fucking shit. You are the display of mental slavery. So they exhibited you, but the absolute majority of the people who were sacrificed for that adventure in Afghanistan, massacre, genocide, caused by the persisting crusade against Muslims and cobbled together by these criminals, George W. Bush, Anthony Blair, and the impact of the violations is continuing and will continue for a very long time to come. And then this shitbag is being hailed by Arthur Edwards, royal photographer. He leapt on Sun's campaign. Prince Harry should remember he leapt onto the Sun's bandwagon to support wounded veterans, not the other way around. In 2007, before Harry went to Afghanistan, the son was doing everything to support the fledgling charity Help for Heroes. I photographed Prince William at the England Sports Centre, St George's Park in Derbyshire, wearing a Help for Heroes wristband. I was desperate to get Harry to do the same. He was on the Isle of Wight, and waited for him at Portsmouth. His press officer did not think the picture would be possible and gave me the indication that Harry wasn't interested. How wrong he was? When Harry stepped off the boat and I asked him to wear the wristband, he said, "Give it to me," put it on his arm, and held it up in triumph. Even though the light was fading, it was one of the best pictures I did of a celebrity wearing this tribute to our injured heroes. Harry was so enthusiastic to help us promote the cause. So I was amazed to see him gripping on Netflix. I'll read that again, not gripping, it's griping. So I was amazed to see him griping on Netflix about feeling abandoned. He only had to pick up the phone and he could get the best people available in the world to help him. When I see severely wounded servicemen still smiling, I wonder what has Harry got to complain about. Well, the thing is that Harry is not complaining about just one item. Harry is, of course, continuing to draw attention to the culture of lies, the culture of racism, culture of imperialism, or culture of massacre, despite the fact that he has himself committed a number of wrongs for which we have condemned him and shall condemn him in the future. He is the one that is pointing out some of these things that no one, including Arthur Edwards, is going anywhere near to pointing out. And the fact that today is the day after the 31st of August 1997, when Diana, his mum, was murdered. How is it that there is no mention of Diana in the scum? And there is a picture that this woman says she found Loch Ness in the loch. I'm looking for the now there is no mention in the scum about the Narendra Modi criminality, about this fraud, multiple fraud that this company that Modi is supported by, has been exposed to have been involved in. This is less than a week after the Modi triumph of landing on the moon. The news comes that Modi is one of the closest backers and notoriously the third richest man apparently in the world, has been involved in the corruption, mega corruption that is being now jointly reported by the Financial Times and the Guardian, apart from anything else. Let's go back to the actual source and check on the Financial Times what it is saying online today at this hour. It's 07:27 GMT. So the Financial Times will come to that item because this is the UK. They're talking about the big read is about climate engineering, quick fix or a risky distraction. And I'm still looking for the item about the Indian crooks. Okay, so this is the Adani. This is the Adani item. Adani shares slide because this is what happens. Because it's always a lottery and always a gimmick and always a stunt. Adani shares slide and politicians demand action after reports on hidden investors. What they're doing by politicians, they're referring to a Nehru. They're referring to Rahul Nehru. So let's see what they're saying in the first paragraph. Shares in Indian industrial conglomerate Adani slid, and opposition politicians demanded action after the Financial Times and two other media outlets, they are too ashamed to admit it's the Guardian as well, reported new revelations about family linked shareholders in the company's stock. The reports shone a spotlight on Indian institutions and the relationship between the conglomerate's founder, Gautam Adani. I'll read that again because I misread the name Adani. The reports shone a spotlight on Indian institutions and the relationship between the conglomerate's founder, Gautam Adani, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a febrile atmosphere ahead of elections earlier next year, that is, Indian election. The value of the group's 10 listed companies dropped by $4.2 billion or 3.3% on Thursday after the Financial Times and the Guardian exposed opaque offshore structures that shielded some of the group's largest shareholders and their connections to the Adani family from public sight. Rahul Nehru, India's most prominent opposition figure, said this is a matter of India's global reputation and it should be investigated. Fuck Rahul Nehru. Fuck off. What does he mean by global reputation? What about the fucking Indian millions that are in starvation, you fucking shit? and he's supposed to be the most prominent fucking opposition figure. Fuck off. At a news conference in Mumbai, we are trying to show the world and our businesses that India has a level playing field. He added, India is hosting the G20 summit on September the 9th and 10th. Adani said it categorically rejected what it called recycled allegations and sought to link the reports to billionaire philanthropist George Soros. The reports are based on documents obtained by the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, a global network of investigative journalists that is part funded by Soros's Open Society Foundations. They also revealed the existence of an investigation of the Adani Group by India's stock market regulator that was closed after Modi came to power in 2014. It, it may suggest that the regulator was closed. It was not the case. The fucking Financial Times is not properly edited, is it? The regulator was not closed, but the regulator was completely fucked up and intimidated, and they dropped the investigation. That's what happened. After Hindenburg, a US short selling group, had accused Adani of manipulating its share prices in a report published in January 2023, India's financial regulator told the Supreme Court in India there had been no such investigations before 2020. Hindenburg told the Financial Times the independent evidence corroborating our work is overwhelming. All eyes are on Indian regulators to see if they will act on that, which is now completely obvious. Sa- Sakit Gokhale, spokesperson for the Trinamool National Congress, an opposition party, that is Mamata Banerjee, said he had written to the chair of the Securities and Exchange Board of India demanding an urgent probe into these allegations against Adani. The Adani Group said these news reports appear to be yet another concerted bid by Soros funded interests, supported by a section of the foreign media, to revive the meritless Hindenburg report. After Adani was contacted for comment last week, BQ Prime, a financial news website that Adani owns, published an opinion piece that said known India and Modi government baiters in foreign shores, along with their allied toolkit groups, were preparing to make another strike in garb of investigative reportage. Soros became unpopular among officials in Modi's government and its supporters after the 93-year-old financier and philanthropist said in February 2023 that Modi and business tycoon Adani are close allies. Their fate is intertwined, predicting that the controversy would weaken the administration. That is, Modi's administration in India, which has been in place since 2014. On Thursday, the hashtag Soros attacks India trended on Twitter, the website formerly known as Twitter. The Open Society Foundation said it was proud to be amongst a number of organizations providing support to the OCCRP, which acts entirely independently regarding the issues it chooses to investigate. What we are seeing now in India is a bogus attempt to discredit OCCRP's work without engaging with its findings. Adani's interests range across infrastructure, power, construction, fuel, and media. From a peak market capitalization of $288 billion last year, its 10 listed companies were worth $127 billion at the market close on Thursday, that is yesterday. So, what they're doing is focusing on this alleged revealing kind of investigation. But the Financial Times is a corrupt, absolutely corrupt, lying, racist arm of the imperialists and anti Muslims. The Financial Crimes is not reporting on the massacres of the Muslims that is going on every day, the mass rapes of Muslims that is going on in India every single day. And this is despite the fact that the Financial Crimes has craftily appointed this Lebanese born woman as their editor, as if that is the answer to the corruption, the imperialism, the anti Muslim agenda, the narrative, and the lying narrative of the Financial Times overall. She is a mental slave. She has been a mental slave for decades. So, who are they kidding? So, let's check what the version on the Guardian's website is saying. All right, so the Guardian is not displaying the Adani story. So let's check another way. So this one is this is Rahul Nehru, the same thing that the Financial Times has been running. Rahul Nehru asks Modi to order full-scale probe into latest allegations on Adani Group. Fuck Rahul Nehru. This shitbag is worse than dead. What the fuck is Modi going to do? He's a thief. He's a crook. So what can he do by ordering probe into allegations? I mean, what was the last time that anything that Modi investigated produced the truth? India's reputation is stake. Fuck off. Hundreds of millions of people in India are not counted as Indians, are they? So what the fucking reputation has got to do with it? What about them? They're starving, they're being raped, they're being murdered, they're being massacred. What about those violations? You cannot hear anything from Rahul Nehru about any of those. Okay, so let's check on the other things that we are going to update on. I mean, apart from the piece by Sebastian Payne, national service can help the young, and the context is mental health crisis and fragmented society could be addressed. Apart from that, there is this item in the domestic UK news rounds, news headings. Schools buildings are collapsing, concrete collapse, and strike actions by student and consultant doctors. And railway union ASLEF is about to go on strike or is already going on strike. So, this is not something that is news. Every single day, there is this alleged shock horror news, but it's not news at all. It's complete routine, dysfunction, dysfunction. And unfit. Now, Caitlin Moran was not visible on the Times on the last Friday. I couldn't find anything by her last Friday, which is what the day is of the week when she has this celebrity watch. Now, today she has got 6 different items in today's edition, where she's given more space to the sick making creep in Spain. Doing that kiss. So let's see her take. She's obviously appearing to say that she's got some different angle. Forgive me, she says, as I don't know much about, quote, these sports. But my understanding is that when a football team win the World Cup, what happens next is something along the lines of absolute unparalleled national ecstasy and hoodalali, followed by joyous entries in the history books. Every team member becomes essentially a living god, celebrated across the land. And most important, they never have to pay for a pint again in their lives. Everyone wants to buy a World Cup winner a pint. The outrage and fury, then, that the Spanish women's football team must be feeling right now, 2 weeks after winning the World Cup, will be unprecedented. For what should be the greatest weeks of their lives have been outright stolen by Luis Rubiales. I mean, my pronunciation is, of course, subject to verification by the authentic Spanish, but I'll have to do the way that I can pronounce it as it is written in this text. So, Luis Rubiales, the man who grabbed the head of the national star Jenny Hermoso and forced a kiss on her in front of a global audience. When Hermosa later stated that this had been against her will and that she wanted an apology for, to be brisk, a non famous management dude trying to get off with a newly minted global icon, he doubled down, refused to apologize, and then threatened to sue her. And now, here we are, 2 weeks later, and what should have been a Spanish August of open topped bus parades and unlimited champagne fountains have instead turned into an international controversy. It said the Spanish government getting involved prompted the whole Spanish women's team and backroom crew to resign in protest and created such a diplomatic mess at the Spanish FA, which still insanely backs Rubiales, that at one point it looked as if Barcelona and Real Madrid would be kicked out of the Champions League by UEFA in retaliation. I don't want to be overly feminist. I probably already used up all my allowably strident feminist tokens for 2023 on Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. But this is all because one man wouldn't say sorry. Rubiales just had to say sorry. In the heat of the moment, I did something I was later told was unwanted and inappropriate, and I apologize. Well done to our amazing national team. That's all it would take. Then all the bus stop parades and champagne could begin. Instead, the mad ego of Rubiales meant that he was willing to not only trash the legacy of the Women's World Cup victory, but actively destroy Spanish football, and not just women's football, just now fucking over the man of Barcelona and Real Madrid too, plus his own mother. For Mrs. Rubiales, in a gesture that suggests Luis was one of those boys who was loved a bit too much, took to a Spanish church on Monday to begin a hunger strike in support of her son, which ended when she was admitted to hospital on Wednesday. When misogynist men reel off the list of historical male accomplishments that prove they are the sex most fitted to power, the technologies of road building, warfare, hypercast, underfloor heating, and the internet, they seem not to realize there is one vital technology many have not yet mastered: the apology. Obviously, not all men, but there is a notable cohort of dudes who believe that eh, to apologize is unmanly, that you should never back down, that when confronted you should redouble your attack, that to admit you are wrong would be to obliterate either your entire sense of self or somehow your own mad genitals. I cannot think of a more extreme or textbook case of how desperately we need to teach boys and men that it's absolutely possible to apologize or admit you were wrong without exploding. In 1966, after winning the World Cup, every single member of the men's England squad received an MBE, and two of them were knighted. In 2023, after winning the World Cup, every single member of the women's Spanish squad had to spearhead an impromptu global feminist protest. It really is a game of two halves. Well, that's all she's saying, which is not saying much at all. And that is the point about the Caitlin Moran, because there is a lot of pretensions, but hardly much originality and substance. There is this willful negligence and denial of the history of Spain and the genocide that they committed. Let's go to the history of Spain. So there is an item, the conversion campaign of Cardinal Cisneros, Cisneros in Granada triggered the rebellion of the Alpujarras, 1499 to 1501. The revolt ended in royalist victories, and the defeated rebels were then required to convert. After the Edict of Conversion in Aragon, Muslims also took up arms, especially in the areas with defensible mountainous terrains. The first armed revolt took place at Benagu Asil by Muslims from the town and surrounding areas. An initial royalist assault was repelled, but the town capitulated in March 1526 after a 5 week siege, resulting in the rebels' baptism. So Muslims are converted, forced into converting to Christianity. Does Caitlin Moran give a fuck about that? Because that is one of the items of evidence of why the likes of this moron, Luis Rubiales, are so determined. And the conversion was the only way to survive for Muslims. So the mass conversion of Muslims into Christianity was one of the things that followed the massacre of Muslims in Spain. Forced conversions of Muslims in Spain. The forced conversions of Muslims in Spain were enacted through a series of edicts outlawing Islam in the lands of the Spanish monarchy. The persecution was pursued by three Spanish kingdoms during the early 16th century: the Crown of Castile in 1500 to 1502, followed by Navarra or Navarre in 1515 to 1516, and lastly the Crown of Aragon in 1523 to 1526. After Christian kingdoms finished their reconquest of Al-Andalus. On 2nd of January 1492, the Muslim population stood between 500,000 and 600,000 people. At this time, Muslims living under the Christian rule were given the status of Mudija, legally allowing the open practice of Islam. In 1499, the Archbishop of Toledo, Cardinal Francisco, began a campaign in the city of Granada to force religious compliance with Christianity with torture and imprisonment. This triggered a Muslim rebellion. The rebellion was eventually quelled, and the news to justify revoking the Muslims' legal and treaty protections. Conversion efforts were redoubted. I'll read that again. Conversion efforts were redoubled, and by 1501, officially, no Muslim remained in Granada. Encouraged by the success in Granada, the castle's Queen Isabella issued an edict in 1502 which banned Islam for all of Castile. With the annexation of the Iberian Navarre in 1515, more Muslims still were forced to observe Christian beliefs under the Castilian edict. The last realm to impose conversion was the Crown of Aragon, whose kings had previously been bound to guarantee the freedom of religion for its Muslims under an oath included in their coronations. In the early 1520s, an anti-Islam uprising known as the Revolt of the Brotherhoods took place, and Muslims under the rebel territories were forced to convert. When the Aragon royal forces, aided by Muslims, suppressed the rebellion, King Charles I, better known as Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire, ruled that those forcible conversions were valid. Thus, the converts were now officially Christians. This placed the converts under the jurisdiction of the Spanish Inquisition. Finally, in 1524, Charles petitioned Pope Clement VII to release the king from his oath protecting Muslims' freedom of religion. This granted him the authority to officially act against the remaining Muslim population. In late 1525, he issued an official edict of conversion. Islam was no longer officially extant, that is, officially existing throughout Spain, and so on. So, this is the part of the background to the mentality that dominates Spain today. But Caitlin Moran wouldn't want to know that. But that's what is happening. And they dare not talk about openly, talk about the massacre of the Muslims. The Muslims held out for months and pushed back several assaults until the Royalist army, enlarged to 7,000 men, with a German contingent of 3,000 soldiers, finally made a successful assault on 19th of September 1526. The assault ended in the massacring of 5,000 Muslims, including old men and women. But Caitlin Moran would not want to know that women were massacred in Spain, not kissed, massacred. Between 1492 and 1610, Some 3 million Muslims voluntarily left or were expelled from Spain, resettling in North Africa. This displaced population provided an army of recruits prepared for commercial war against Christendom, launching piratical attacks from bases in Algiers, Tunis, Morocco, and Tripoli. After the disintegration of the Caliphate, Islamic control was gradually eroded by the Christian Reconquista. The reconquest, was the process by which the Catholic kingdoms of northern Spain eventually managed to succeed in defeating and conquering the Muslim states of the Iberian Peninsula. So this entry on the in Wikipedia about Islam in Spain. Spain is a Christian majority country, with Islam being a minority religion practiced mostly by the immigrants and their descendants from Muslim majority countries. As of 2019, 4.45% of the Spanish population are Muslims. Islam was a major religion on the Iberian Peninsula, beginning with the Umayyad conquest of Hispania and ending, at least overtly, with its prohibition by the modern Spanish states in the mid 16th century and the expulsion of the Moriscos in the early 17th century, an ethnic and religious minority of around 500,000. Although a significant proportion of the Moriscos returned to Spain or avoided expulsion, the practice of Islam had faded into obscurity by the 19th century. While 2022 official estimates of Centro de Investigations Sociológicas indicates that 2.8% of the population of Spain has a religion other than Catholicism, according to an unofficial estimate of 2020 by the Union of Islamic Communities of Spain. The Muslim population in Spain represents 4.545% of the total Spanish population as of 2019, of whom 42% were Spanish citizens, 38% Moroccans, and 28% other nationalities. And so on. So all these facts are alien to Caitlin Moran and all the British racist, anti-Muslim journals that have been repeating one another on the superficial scandal of this kiss. Underneath the scandal of the kiss and the defiance by the kisser lies the rock solid relic legacy of massacre, genocide, and murders. And no one apologized for massacre, genocide, murders, rapes, and so on. So it shouldn't be a matter of surprise that Luis Rubiales is not apologizing at all. If we look at the behavior of the UK government in harassing baby angel Geronimo, we can see that they were not acting in vacuum because they had the history similar to the Spaniards against Muslims. They had the history. Let's check the history. Discourses of barbarity and travel to England in the formation of an elite French social identity. This is a University College London document. And there is another one retrieved from the Library of Congress in the USA. British barbarity and piracy. The Federalists say that Mr. Christopher Gore ought to be supported as a governor for his attachment to Britain. If British influence is to affect suffrage of free people, let them read the following melee. And so therefore there is a similar parallel kind of barbarity to the barbarity perpetrated by the Spanish Christians against the Muslims. And the British barbarity was labeled differently, but it was as brutal and as barbaric as any counterpart that could be found in Spain or in the rest of Western Europe, or for that matter, in what became the Eastern Europe or Russia. What is happening in Sweden, for example, the burning of the Holy Quran, is not a novel event. So when in 1980s Satan Rushdie's book was burnt in Bradford, a very small number of Muslims protesting against Satan Rushdie, that event was reported by the British media in a way as if that kind of thing never happened before anywhere. And it was these 10 or 15 Muslims in Bradford doing something unprecedented. Nothing could be further from the truth. Let's look at the history of England. Witchcraft was a felony in both England and its American colonies, and therefore witches were hanged, not burned. However, witches' bodies were burned in Scotland, though they were strangled to death first. So when they say that when the Scottish referendum enthusiasts say that they are better than the English, how ludicrous are they? because they were not only not better than the English, they were the same or worse in some cases. In England, witch trials were conducted from the 15th century until the 18th century. Now, look at that. That is the kind of time when the Spanish Christians were massacring, genociding, mass raping, and torturing Muslims in Spain. So the witch trials are estimated to have resulted in the death of perhaps 500 people, 90% of whom were women. The witch hunt was its most intense stage during the English Civil War between 1642 to 1651 and the Puritan era of mid 17th century. Witch trials are known to have occurred in England during the Middle Ages. These cases were few and mainly concerned cases toward people of one elite or the people of the elite or with ties to the elite, often with a political purpose. Examples of these were the trials against Eleanor of Cobham and Marjorie Jordanian, whatever the pronunciation, in 1441, which resulted in lifetime imprisonment for the former and an execution for the heresy for the latter. It was not until the second half of the 16th century that a wide scale witch hunt took place in England. The cases became more common in the end of the 16th century and the early 17th century, and so on. So when Boris Johnson said that he was entitled to express his opinion that Muslim women wearing burqas looked like bank robbers, he wasn't joking. He was consciously thinking of the background and the context historically that those in power in England actually were entitled to impunity over their violations and their barbarity and their cruelty. When Johnson echoed the DEFRA cruelty against baby angel Geronimo, he knew that similar atrocities and demonization against the innocents had been the norm for most of the period historically in England and by England. So Christian Middlemas coming from Scotland was not being exceptionally cruel for the first time. She was continuing the cruelty of the Scottish background, Scottish culture that competed with the cruelty of the English. So baby angel Geronimo, when we say that baby angel Geronimo is the witness, the world's most authentic witness, that is the kind of thing that we think of, we refer to. Because baby angel Geronimo was targeted for his innocence, and purity. Exactly the way that the victims of the English and the Scottish barbarity and cruelty had been targeted for their cruelty and their innocence. So when they attacked Al-Fayed for daring to own the department store, despite the fact that he is from Egypt, Egyptian Muslim, they were thinking, how dare a Muslim come into England and own a department store like the Harrods. That's what they were thinking. It's not something new. They were continuing, they were reviving. When Al Fayed said that they were brutes, they're murderers, they're cruel beyond condemnation, he was not being blank. He knew the history, or he should have known, whoever advised him knew. Michael Cole must have known. So we shall be ending this one at this time, which is 1 hour 5 minutes approximately. And we shall continue on all these topics and additional updates in due course in later editions.